Okay, so this problem is asking us to raise a product to a power. And this is a product because we have three different things being multiplied here. We have a 16, we have x squared, and we have y to the fourth. And that whole product is then being raised to the 1/2 power. So, a couple tricky parts. What do you do when you raise a product to a power? And secondly, this is a fractional power. So what does that mean to raise something to a fractional power? So this right here shows us what happens when we raise a product to a power. We basically take each of the terms of the product and raise each one of those to that power. So if this is a times b raised to the n, we would do a to the n and b to the n. So this one's a little bit different because we actually have three different things that are all being raised to the 1/2 power. So let's go ahead and write those out. First term is 16, and that's going to be raised to the 1/2 power. And then the next term is x squared, and that's going to be also raised to the 1/2 power. And then finally, we have y to the fourth, which is also going to be raised to the 1/2 power. So these two are a little bit more confusing because they're a power raised to another power. Let's start with this. So 16 raised to the 1/2 power. What does that mean to raise something to a fractional exponent? Well, what it means is that we take the numerator of the fraction and we raise this base number to that power. So that would be just 16 to the first power, or 16. And then we take the denominator of that fraction, and that is what we are going to take the root of. So we are going to take the second, or the square root of 16. So the square root of 16 is 4. So to recap, 16 raised to the 1/2 power means the square root of 16, which is 4. So the next thing we want to look at is this x squared to the 1/2. So what does that mean when something is raised to a power and then raised to another power? Well, when we have something raised to one power and then raised to another power, what we're going to do is we're actually going to multiply the two powers. So 2 times 1/2. And that is just going to give us 1. And so if you want to find out for yourself, if you want to make sure for yourself that that actually works, we could just test it out. So what I said is basically just multiply the exponents. In this case, that was 2 and 1/2. So let's test it out by just plugging in a number for x. Let's just say, we'll just call x the number 3. And we'll say 3 squared, which is then raised to the 1/2 power. And so what I would say from that, from what we learned earlier, is that we would just multiply 2 times 1/2, which would give us 1, and 3 to the 1 is just 3. So let's see if when we work this out, we get an answer of 3. So 3 squared is 9, and then 9 to the 1/2, we remember what we learned earlier over here about taking something to the 1/2 power. That just means the square root of that. And so the square root of 9 is in fact 3. So when we tested out a number, we found that it also worked. That all we need to do is just multiply the two different exponents. And that's how we can simplify. So x squared raised to the 1/2 is just x to the 1, or x. And then the final thing we need to do is look at this y to the 4th raised to the 1/2. Okay, so we've got y to the 4th raised to the 1/2. And go ahead and pause the video right now and see if you can work this out for yourself using what we applied earlier to the x squared to the 1/2. So you'll remember that when we have something raised to a power and then raised to another power, all we need to do is multiply those two things. So in this case it would be 4 times 1/2, which gives us 2. So y to the 4th, which raised again to the 1/2, is just y squared. And so now all these things are just being multiplied together. So we get a final answer of 4x y squared. And that is what we get when we simplify 16x squared y to the 4th all raised to the 1/2 power.